So, what's Stout Components anyways? Stout Components, to keep it short, it uses a technique called CSS in JS. And what this lets us do is attach our CSS styles directly to our React components. So this way it results in a styled React component. And we're going to see more of that moving forward. There are a lot of reasons to use Stout Component. You can pause this video and read the rest, but I just want to talk about my top two reasons. The first one is dynamic styling. You see, since it's a React component, we can pass things like props, and based on the value of that prop, we can assign different styles to the application. So this makes things like theming, like the light and dark theme, a lot easier to do. We can really build highly customizable components this way. The second reason is no class conflict. So sometimes we might assign the same class name to different parts of the application, and this can result in class name clashes and result in unexpected styling in our application. So styled components, since the styles are directly attached to the component, it makes it a lot easier since only the styles that you attach to the component affects that component. So styled components create a unique class ID or unique class name for that component, and it makes sure that it doesn't spill to the rest of your components or your application. To learn styled components, we're going to be making a clone of the Pinterest homepage. So since React is a prerequisite for this course, I'm going to assume you know how to create a React application, but let's just go through it together. So to start, I would go to my terminal, and I'm going to go to my desktop, and here I'm going to run npx create -react -app at latest, and let's name it Pinterest clone. That looks good. We're going to click enter, and this could take a while. For this to work, you should have your just click OK. For this to work, you should have Node.js installed, which comes with npm. So we're just going to give this a couple of seconds, hopefully, to finish. But while it's still going, I can just drag it to my VS Code, which is going to be the IDE we would be using. I'm going to click trust, say yes, I trust these authors, and I'm going to expand this. Okay. So while we're waiting for the install to finish, let's talk about my extensions. So I have this auto close tag, which helps with opening and closing tags. I have the auto imports, auto rename tag. So you can just go through this and go through your extension folder if you're using VS Code or whatever IDE you're using, and just install these extensions, as I'll be using some of them. So we have the styled snippets, which is for styled components. We have the styled JSX, styled component snippets, and honestly, these are some of them are just repeats of each other, but yeah, you can just install it and we would get started. Okay, so it looks like our application is done. I will open my terminal, which you can also do by, I think, going to view and clicking terminal. That will do the same thing, or just clicking Control tilde. So now we're going to run npm stat. Nice. So now we have our React application, and from next video we're going to start cloning the Pinterest clone. So if you're unlucky like me, you might have gotten this weird Babel error, which says one of your dependencies, Babel preset React blah blah blah, is importing this package. Anyways, you can just read the error for yourself, but if you got this, I'm just going to show you how to fix it. So let's go ahead and split our terminal, and we're going to run npm install --save -dev, and we can just copy this package and then press enter. So now it looks like that's fixed. We still got our React application. That's good. So first things first, let's go ahead and install styled components. I'm just going to clear this, make it easier to see. We can run npm I, which is, the I is just a short for install, so this is the same thing as npm install. Then we can say styled components. My spellings look good. Press enter. Just gonna give this a couple of seconds to load, and it looks like it's done. If we go to our package.json, we can see that we do have styled components here, so that's good. So now we have that installed. Let's go ahead and do some cleanup. So we want to get rid of all this. We can start by going to the app.js. We can start by removing this class name, remove the header, and we can just put ... for now. We're gonna remove the logo. We're gonna see what's inside the app.css. We don't need any of this, so we can just copy everything, clear it out. Actually, we can just get rid of the file. We don't need this app.css, so we delete it. We can remove the import, and looks good. Okay, so that's good. We just have the 3 dots that we put, so this is good. So let's look around the Pinterest application. We can kind of break this application in 3 parts. So we can create a parent container, which will be the homepage container, and it's going to contain the header. We can call this part the body, and then we can call this part the footer. So let's take this one step at a time and create the homepage container. So we'll go back to the IDE, and in this source folder, I'm going to create a folder called pages. And inside this pages, I'm going to create another folder called home. I'll go with a small casing. And then inside the home, I'm going to create a file called home.jsx. And here I'm going to create my, oh sorry, I typed in Hemo. I missed preschool, sorry. So home.jsx. Okay, so here I'm going to create my React component, and I'll just go to use a shortcut array. So this comes from, 1 second, if we go back. So this comes from the ES7 plus React Redux snippets. So it's one of the extensions we talked about earlier. So this just makes creating React components easier. So now we have my home component. I'm going to go back to my app.js, and I'm just going to import it in here. So it's going to be home. And if I go back and just remove one letter and type it back, I'm going to have the auto imports. So I'm going to click tab, and now it's auto imported for me. So let's go back to our application, and now we see home. So home should be 100% width. So it's going to be 100% view width and 100% view height. So let's create our very first styled component. We're going to say const, let's call it home page. We can call it home page. It's going to be equals to styled, which comes from styled components. So if I go to it, styled, and I'll just click on tab, I get it auto imported. And we can create it with, since it's going to be a div, we can say .div, and then we use the template literals. So be careful, this is not a string, but the template literals. And then inside here is where we're going to assign our styles. So to start, I'm just going to give it a background color of, let's say red, just so we can see it. Let's give it a width of 100 view width, and I will give it a height of 100 view height, VH. Okay, so now we've assigned the homepage component, styled component. We can just replace it with this div. So remember, this is a div, but it's a styled div with these styles attached to it. So let's click on this and just replace it. And now it's replaced on both sides because I have the tag complete, auto tag complete. which is an extension list I showed you guys before. Again, you can go and install it if you're using VS Code. Okay, so now let's go back, and as we see, our style is not being applied. Unless, what could that be? Homepage, home. Let's go ahead and refresh this. Okay, good. So as you can see, now we have our styles being applied. We have it spanning 100 view width and 100 view height, and that's it. That's good. That is our very first style component. Still on the home page, let's talk about the multiple ways we can create a styled component. So let's copy, actually let's just, okay, so let's create another home page, but we're going to call this one home page 1. It's going to be equals to styled, and rather than .div, we can open the bracket and pass the element name as a string. We can go ahead with our template literal and copy paste our styles. Only thing is now we change the red to blue and we replace the home page with home page 1. And now we see we can still create style components this way. Another way is, let's create another one, call it home page 3 equals to styled. Let's use the first way, .div, but now rather than template string, we're going to use the JavaScript object method. So we're going to return an object, and rather than a background color, as you can see, we get the JavaScript way. So rather than the background color, background dash color, which we write in CSS, we're going to write it in camel case. So if I type background, we get a good autocomplete here. And now rather than just writing the column name red, we have to put it in a string. So red. And rather than being separated by semicolons, we're now separated by commas since it's an object. So we go with width, same thing in a string, VW, separated by comma, and the height in a string, 100 VH. So we're going to change this 1 to 3. Let's give it a color of purple just to be sure it's being applied. Good. So yeah, these are the multiple ways we can create styled components. Over the course, we're going to use a couple of them just to get used to it. But yeah, that's it. So let's go ahead and just clean all this up. Go back to our original home page. Let's refresh this. Good. Okay, so let's talk about naming. Ideally, you see people use styled by adding styled in front of the component name. Or you can pretty much name it whatever you want, but this is just, I guess, I don't want to say industry standard, but it's just what a lot of people do. But let's talk about where we should put our styled components. Putting the styled components in the React component is frowned upon because every time the React component renders, it creates a new styled component, which is not ideal because our style probably remains the same and we don't want to have to create a new version of the styled component every time we render. So we can move this out of the component and just maybe put it outside here, which will still give us the same thing. Or what I like to do is create a new styled file. So create a new file. I call it home.styled.jsx, and there I paste my style. So we'll have to go ahead and import styled from styled components, and we'll have to export styled home. Then we'll have to go here, remove this. We don't need styled here anymore. And we're gonna import styled home. Click save to clean up the white spaces, and yeah, the same thing. So this is how we're gonna go moving forward. We're gonna have one file for our components. We're gonna have another file for the style sheet. That's it. Let's talk about global styles. And let's try to apply our background color to the global style rather than the home page. So global styles is where we kind of assign our CSS resets. So things like padding and the margin, the bar, the box sizing, and etc. So that's what we're gonna do. So to do that, let's go back to the app.js. And if you remember, we did delete the app.css file. So we're gonna have to create that again. And that's gonna go in the source folder. We're gonna create a new file. We're gonna call it app.styled.jsx. And in here, we're gonna create our global styles. So style component actually exports I'll call it API called create global style, which actually lets us create the global style. So it goes like this. We call it const. We can call it global styles equals to create global style. So we go ahead and click tab. It's going to import that for us. The same, we use that template literal, expand it. So here's where we add the CSS resets. So I'm going to add this to everything. I'm going to add it to everything before. I'm going to also add it to everything after for my bracket. So I'm going to reset my margin to 0. I'm going to reset my padding to 0. I'm also going to give border none. And I'm going to say box sizing should be equals to border box. I'm going to make this important because I've found sometimes it doesn't work. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this, let's say 3 more times. The first one will be for the WebKit. So I'm going to do -web kits. The second one would be for Mozilla, so MOZ dash. The third one would be for MS, so we can do -ms. Okay, this looks good. Now we have to export global styles so we can use it in our app.js. So just right beside home, what we can do is just right beside home we can import global styles. Actually, let me put this down just to make it easier to see. Down here I'm going to say global styles, and now auto imported. So this is good. So I go here, refresh, everything looks good. So what we can do now is in the home we remove our background color. So background color goes back to white, and in the global styles, sorry, I'm just gonna. So if I hold on my command and I click on this, it brings up this, and if I double click it, I can go to the file that the style is contained in. So right here, I can actually add my background color, and here I can say red. Let's say Indian red. Good. So now we can tell that our global style is working. That's good. I would like to talk a bit about global styles. So global styles should be placed at the top of your React component tray. So in this case, the top component will be the index.js, which kind of renders our app.js. And right now, the main component is the home. So just side by side to your main component, and the styles will be applied. So we can replace this div with just a React fragment, and we should still get the same result. Okay, that's good. So normally I would have liked to leave this part till a later section in the course, but I find it's easier to add themes to your application at the start, at least to plan for it. So we would like to add a dark and light theme mode to the Pinterest application. I know they don't have it anywhere, but I just thought it's going to be an interesting addition. So to start that, let's create a folder in our source directory. We're going to call it utils. And inside that folder, let's create a new file and call it themes.js. Now in this themes file, we want to export const theme, and it's going to be an object, and this object will have a light property which will hold an object, and we'll also have a dark which would hold an object. So we can go to the Pinterest page, and I guess the background color is white, but just to make sure, I have this color picker added to my Chrome as an extension, and I just click pick color from page, and as you can see, it's white. So we can click anywhere in the page to copy it, go back, and we can add background and paste it there. For the dark mode, I'll copy the background property, paste it in the dark mode, and let's make this black for now. Maybe this will change in the future. Okay, let's go back to our app.js, and what we want to do is we want to use a theme provider, which is provided by Stout Components. So you want to go there and click on your tab key to import it. So we have theme provider from Stout Components. It looks like it didn't autocomplete here, so I'm just gonna do that. Everything looks good. And what we want to do is we want to pass a theme property, and we want to pass our theme. So this is the theme we got that is in the themes file in the utils folder, and we're just going to pass it here. And now this, what the theme provider does, it uses the same principle as the context API, and it passes this theme to every Stout component in its every children of its data Stout component gets this theme property. So moving forward, we're going to be able to use the properties in the, either the light or the dark mode in each Stout component. Okay, now we have the theme set up. Let's go ahead and add it to the application. So to use themes, we have to understand how to use props. So since the background color is coming from our global styles, we're going to go there, which is in the app.style.jsx. And since this is a JavaScript template literal, we can inject values in it the same way we would in JavaScript by adding the dollar symbol followed by open and close brackets. So we're able to get the props. Since this is a Stout component, they all get the props. Put an arrow, and then we return props.theme, right, which would be this theme, which will be coming from here. Then we want the light theme, and then we want to get the background. So we're going to say .light dot go here. We can copy the background. So if we go back to our application, we see that we get the white background. If we were to change this to dark, we would get the black background. But in my opinion, I think we should store whether the application is in a light or dark mode in the app component or any other global component in the application. But we're going to store it here, so we can say const, call it current theme, say set current theme. I'm going to use a use state, and let's start with a dark mode for now. Then we're going to pass, since current theme is light or dark, which should be the same properties in the theme object, we can just go and access it here. So now this is going, since this will be dark, we're going to be passing just this object inside our app.style or as theme to any style component. So if we go back to the app.style, rather than using the dark here or light, we can just say props.theme.background, because the props.theme would be this object, which we can directly access the background. Okay, let's go back to our component, our application, and as we can see, it's a dark background. And if we were to change this dark here to light, then we get a white background. So this way we can simply pass this set function to update the state of our application from light to dark. Okay, so if we go back to the app.style.jsx, we can also destructure in here. So we can just take out theme, and then we don't have to use props the same way we do in JavaScript, and that still works. Or we can even go one step further and further destructure. Take a background, then we can remove theme, and as you see, this still works. But I find this is a bit complicated, not that easy to read. So we can just go ahead and expand it. So props the theme, the background. Good. Okay, so this is how we use how we access props in styled components, and we're going to be doing more of this throughout this application. Okay, let's go ahead and make the footer component. And as you can see, it's part of the home page component, and you can say it's split in three places. So the header, the content, and the footer. But we can also split this in two. So we can split it in the content and then the footer, because the header is going to be sticked to the top of the page. So we can just leave that for now and put it in the content container. Okay, so let's split our home page, which is going to be home, the styled home. Let's split that into two. So if we go to our home.styled, and what I'm going to do now is just kind of split this into two. So I have the component on the left and the style sheet on the right. And over here we can add, we can say display grid. Then we can say grid template columns 1F arrow, which will make it span 100%. And then we can say grid templates rows. And because I've built this before, I know it's 94% and the footer is 6%. Good. So what we're gonna do now is, let's go back to the home. So now this is split in two. So what we can do is, in the first one, we can just put, let's just put a div and just put content with dummy content text. But for here, we're gonna put footer just to see, make sure everything is good. Sorry, this would be another div, the text footer. And now we want to replace this footer with our footer component. So let's go to this source folder and create a new folder called components. And inside that components folder, we're going to create another folder called footer. And then inside the footer, let's create our footer.jsx, which will be our component file. And let's also create another file called footer.styled.jsx. Actually, well, we can say JSX or JS. We can just say JSX. Okay, so we're going to take the styled sheet to the right and leave the component to the left. So to the left, let's create our footer component. And let's create the wrapper, which would be styled footer. So now let's create this in the style sheet. So we can say export const styled footer, which would be styled dot div template literal. Open it. And to start, let's give it a background color of, we'll just go back here. This background color is going to be, just copy it from the old file. It's going to be FF FD, and I got this color by using the color picker that I showed earlier in the course. Then let's give it a width of 100% and the height of 100%. And it's going to take the 100%, it's going to take 100% width and height of this, which is going to be the 6% height, and the width of 1/2 arrow, because this is the parent. Okay, so now let's go back to the footer component and let's import our styled footer. So now we have it. Let's go back to home and replace this footer here with our footer component. Okay, let's go back to our application. Nice. So now we have the footer component here showing. It looks good. So what we want to do is add the text along with this icon. So for the text, let's go back to the footer component. To start, our text is just going to be a p tag for now, and later in the course we're going to create a custom style text component, and the text says here's how it works. So we're just going to write that down. Here's how it works. Then by this side we're going to have the icon. So for the icons, I'm going to be using React icons. So you just go on your search engine, just type in React icons and click on the first link. So to install it, it says install npm install React icon save. So I'm just going to copy that, paste it to my IDE and install it. Now the icon we want is a down arrow icon. We can type in arrow, and here you can just search for the icon you want. But because I've done this before, I know the icon is MD outline keyboard. So it's this one. So this is the icon. So if you go ahead and you click it, it copies in your clipboard. So we're just going to come here, down, okay, and let's go ahead and import it. So import this, from, it's going to come from React icons, and that is going to be /md. And how I know it's MD is because it starts with MD. So usually it's the first two characters of the icon name. So MD, good. Okay, let's go back to our application, make sure that that looks good. Nice. So we have our text and we have our icon. Okay, so we want to center it. So let's go back to our styled sheet, and we're gonna say, we can say display flex, justify content would be, it should be center, and then we want align items to be center. Okay, nice. So this looks good. Okay, we have this weird background color, and we're going to take care of this in the next video. Okay, let's take care of this background. It's coming from our app.style.jsx, and the reason for that is because we added, well, this selector kind of selects everything, so we added a background color to everything. So this is not exactly what we want. So we're just going to take away the background color from here, and we want it to just be in the home page. So we're just going to paste it in the home.styled. Also, I'm going to move over the style sheet to the right. So yeah, just copy the background color from the app.styled and paste it in the home.styled JSX, and now everything should be good. So to make sure we perfectly replicate the Pinterest footer, looks like the icon is a bit bigger, so we're gonna come to the footer.jsx, and it does have a size property, which is going to be 26. Good, looks good. And just for an extra bonus, to know the properties that the components have, especially when you're dealing with external component libraries, you can just hold your command key and you can press on the component name. So this is going to take us to, I don't know if you know TypeScript, but it's going to take us to the typed file. And you can see that this component, it takes this call it prop called icon type. So if you hold command again and press on icon type, it's going to take you here, and then you can check the props again by holding command and pressing icon based props. It takes us here, which shows us the different props that we can pass. You can also see this, of course, by going to the React Icons I guess library documentation and reading for yourself. Okay, let's close this down, close this, and yeah, that's it. Looks good. So in the next video, we're going to be dealing with the text. We're going to have to make a custom styled text, because as you can see, the Pinterest page has a lot of text with different colors and different sizes, so would have to deal with that. Okay, so let's talk about this text. If you notice, we have a lot of text on this page, some with different colors and different sizes. So this means we're going to need a reusable text component. So let's go ahead and deal with that. But first, I want to show you that styled components actually let us extend components. So to start, let's create this custom style text. So if I go to the utils folder, I can create a new file called text.styled.jsx. And in here we can export const text, which will equals to styled.p, open template string, and we can give it a font size. Just be for the default one, we can just say 16 pixels. Then we can give it a color of red, and we can say white space, no wrap, just to prevent it from wrapping. Okay, so let's use this to start. So if I go back to the footer, rather than the P, I can just replace that with text. Let me import that. Good. So let's go and see. Okay, so good. We have our text, which is red, and let's say we wanted this text to be a bit bigger. Let's say we wanted to add this text here, which is a bit bigger and bold. So what we can do is we can actually extend a component we've already written, or a component from an external library. So if I just go and copy this, rather than doing .p, we're going to use the other method and just pass in the component name, which is text. Can I already declare box code? Okay. So we can change this to styled text, which we'll have to go back and replace this. Okay, that's good. Still works. It looks good. Okay. So if I go back to the text as styled, we can replace this with style text, and here we can overwrite these styles, because when you extend another styled component, you inherit the styles. So if I don't override the color, we're going to see the color is going to be red, but I can override the font size, and let's make it 32. We don't need this since we're going to get in it from here. So if we go back, you see it's bigger. So we can call this text text large. If I come back, I can use text large, import text large, and that's how we use it. But as we can see, there's already a downside to this, in the sense that if I want, let's say, like an extra large, then I'll have to extend style text, then maybe increase the size again, and we just have a lot of styled components. So rather than doing this method, I would rather we use props. So in the next video, we're going to be replacing this and using the props component to build a dynamic custom styled component. Okay, so now we learned about the extend property in styled components. Let's just go ahead and replace all this with props. So we can change this back to text. For the font size, we're going to use props. So I'm going to do $, open my curly brackets. I'm going to get the props, and in the props there will be hopefully we can call it size, right? So in the props we're going to pass if we want so I'm going to come here to the footer component, replace this back with text. It should be coming from our text is styled.jsx. So in here we're going to be passing a prop called size, and this size will be normal. Okay, and here what we want is props the size will be normal. So we want to go back to our utils folder and create a new file, and we're going to call it sizes.js. And what we want to do here is we want to kind of create a size chart. So we say export const sizes equals to, it's going to be an object, and normal would be, let's call it 16 pixels. The other text large, which is these ones, right, is going to be 20 pixels. So kind of giving every different type of text like their own style. And we can say extra large, which would be 60 pixels. Okay, so we're exporting this. We can go back here. So now, since this is normal, we can say we can use the object property notation to access the size. Sorry. Nice. Okay. So what we're doing here is in the footer components we want a normal size text as a prop with size normal. Here we're getting the normal in the props.size, and we're passing the normal as a key to this object to get this 16 pixels. So if you do pass a size property, we want to use that size. If you don't, we're just gonna, we can use a size by default. So we can say this, or which is the same in JavaScript, sizes, and just pass normal. Okay, so here, since we pass normal, we say we have a normal size text. If we go here and change it to large, you see the text is large, and if we change it to extra large, see our text is extra large. And if we ignore the size property, we don't pass any props, we should still get a normal, because in this styled we're saying if we don't pass anything, use a normal size text. So this is one way we can easily customize it. So now let's customize the color. As you can see, some text like these ones and these ones would have different colors. So we can go back to our footer and we say color equals to here we can say red, right? Or let's say blue. So if I go to the text.style.js, we can use the same technique we used for the font size. So we can literally just copy that, but rather than size is going to be color. So say if you give us a color, use that color, so we don't need sizes anymore. So it's just going to be props.color. If you give us a color, use that color. Else we want to use props.theme let's call it text color, which we haven't added yet. So we have to go and add this to our theme.js. So for the light, in a light theme, we want our text color to be black. So that is going to be hashtag 000. And then on the dark theme, we want our text color to be white. So FFF. Good. Okay. So if we go now to our app, as you can see, since we're passing a color, it's blue. If we pass another color, let's say pink, right? We get a pink text. But if we ignore the color, since we have the or, so we're saying if they don't pass any color, use the text color from the themes. So now it's black. So if I go to the app.js and we change our theme to dark, we can see the text color changes to white. Okay, so for this instance, we don't really want this text color to change to white since the background doesn't change. So just for the footer, what we're going to do is we want to actually pass a color, which would be black black is 000. So we actually want to use a dark color. Nice. So let's go back to our app.js, change this theme back to light theme. Okay, that's good. Okay, so if I do say so myself, we're a bit close to the final result. The only difference between the original and ours is, I think the original is a bit bolded. So let's just go ahead and fix that. If I go to the footer.styled, sorry, it will be in our text.styled. I'm just going to bring it to the right. We can just add font weight of 600. And now this should be very close to the original, which is good. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so let's do something. I want to show you guys a new property which is called the as attribute. So if I go ahead and inspect our text, which is this, we see that it's the p tag, which is correct. That is what we did give it. We gave it the p tag. But let's say we wanted our text to be something else. Let's say we wanted it to be a h1. We can use the as and put it as h1. And as you can see, if we inspect it again, you see that now we get h1. So this is a shorthand way we can change the element name of our component. So you can change it to pretty much anything. You can say h1. If you want it to be a span, you can change to span. As you can see, change to a span. Yeah, I just thought I'd show you guys this property. So let's go ahead and work on the header component of this Pinterest clone. To start, let's create in the components folder. Let's make a new folder called header. Inside the header, let's create the header.jsx. And inside, let's create a style sheet. It should be header.styled.jsx. Technically, this should be JS, but don't judge me because we're not really returning any JSX from the styled components. But I guess we already started, might as well just keep going. Okay, so let's create our header component with the text header, and in this styled, let's create a styled header. So let's export const styled header. Man, I don't know what's wrong with me and making the capital letters. Okay, styled header equals to styled dot div. Okay, good. Open template distro, and to start, let's give it a background color of pink. I mean, why not? Okay, so let's go to the home page. Inside the contents, I'll just import our header components. It's good. Go back, refresh. Doesn't seem to work. Why is that? Okay, if I go to the header components, it's because we didn't replace this div with our styled div. Sorry, styled header. Good. Just replace the closing tag. That's good. Okay, this should work. Nice. Okay, so this is looking good. So if we come here, we're gonna see we have some pattern on the top, the left, the right, and we don't have on the bottom. Well, we can assume like we don't have. So let's go to the styled header. We can add, first let's say display flex, because we want our items side by side. Align items, should be center. Actually, yeah, center. Good. We want justify content to be space between. This is because when we want them to be the space in between. So that is space between. I assume you guys already know CSS. And then of course we want the weight to be 100%. I guess that's already kind of applied, but why not? And let's see. Okay, pattern. Sorry. So pattern top will be 1.4 rem. Padding right will be 1 rem. Padding bottom will be 0 rem. And padding left will be 1.8 rem. Don't ask me how I know this. Okay, looks good. Okay, let's go ahead and make this part, which we're gonna call the logo container. So if I open my header, I can make a logo container, which is going to be a start component we're going to create later on. And in there, we're going to use an icon. So this will be an icon, and the icon name is called F. Let's see if we can search. Let's say Pinterest. Okay. So if we look for FA Pinterest. I think it's this one. Yeah, I'm confident this one. Okay, so let's go back to our file. So we can say FA Pinterest. And let's import this from our React icon. So import FA Pinterest from, it's going to be React icon / FA. It's good. Let's create our styled logo container. So I can just duplicate this, fix the name. It's going to be a div. Just remove this. So our logo container is going to just have a display flex because I want the items side by side. Align items, center, and let's give the gap, which would be the gap between the text and the icon. So let's say 0.2 rem. So here we're gonna add the text, so that our custom text we created in our text.styled, and it's going to be just the text Pinterest. So let's import our styled component, logo container, and let's see how we're doing. Okay, so that looks good. We just have to increase the size and the color of the Pinterest logo. Okay, so we can give it a size of 33, and the color would be E60022. Again, don't ask me how I know this. Okay, so for the text, I guess the text is the same color as well. And if we remember, our text actually takes in the color prop. So we can just we can copy this color and pass it. Good, we get the text that color. And if you notice, the text in the Pinterest page is actually bolded. So what we can do is we can use the as attribute we talked about and give it a H1, and this should make it bold. Let's refresh this. That didn't seem to work. Okay, let's get back to that. Let's go to the font size. Sorry, I think it's size, right? Let's go back just to make sure in the text. Props to size, nice. Okay, so size equals to large. Nice, see that worked. Okay, and I think the bold is being applied. Let's remove the as attribute and see if it changes. Okay, it doesn't seem to change. We'll get back to that. Okay, so to continue, I want to show a new property that styled component gives us, and this is the ability to style our styled components by class name. So if we go ahead and add a class name to this, and we'll just call this name logo, and that's because we want to actually modify the letter spacing of this text. So if we go to the original, we see the letter spacing is really close together. So we want to add that to our text. So with this class name logo, we can go to the header.styled. We can say in the logo container, or sorry, it will be in the text because this is the text. So we have to go to the text.style.jsx, and this ampersand, 1% refers to the instance of the the styled component instance. Then dot logo, which is the same with CSS access property. So ampersand.logo will refer to any text that has the class name of logo. So we can say letter spacing should be equal to let's say -1 pixels. Just trying to remember what it was. Okay, and that's good. So yeah, if we go crazy like -10, then we see it's just weird. So yeah, -1 is it is. Yeah, so just to reiterate, by adding a class name, so class name logo, we can actually style by that class name in the styled component. So since this class name is inside the text styled component, we can go inside the text component and say ampersand dot the class name, which means every instance of text that has this class name logo, apply this style to it. Okay, so this looks good. If I take away go to the header, take away this pink background for a second, just to see how it looks. That's pretty close to the original. We can take away the as h1 has been gone. Okay, looks good. Actually, if I add it to the text h1, okay, so that should be h1 just because it's kind of the title of the page, right? So if I inspect, just make sure the h1 is there, so we have our h1 attributes. Okay, so this is close to the original and I'm happy with this. So let's move on, and in the next video we're going to be making the links. So let's work on the links, and what we notice is we have 3 links, then we have 2 buttons, but they're kind of all links, right? It's like a login link, sign up link, and then the only difference is these are buttons and these are links. So we can group all of them in one box, and we'll just call it a link container. Okay, so right under the logo container, let's create our styled component link container. Good. And in there, we're going to have styled link. So we're going to have, let's make these 3 links first. Okay, so styled link, and it's going to be about, then business, then blog. So about, so we can duplicate this 3 times, 1, 2, 3, and I use this shortcut. If you're on the Apple computer, you can press Shift Option then down to kind of duplicate whatever I highlighted down. Okay, So now let's go ahead and create this link container. So we go to our header.style.jsx. Let's duplicate this. It's going to be a div, but we can replace the name with links container. For the styling, we're going to leave display as flex. I want align items to be center. For the gap, let's remove the gap for now. Actually, let's add a gap of 5 rem. I'm gonna see if that's good later on. And then for the styled link, this is gonna be interesting because we're gonna use that extend property we learned about. Control C. Just duplicate this down. Let's create the styled link. So I'm just copy this, replace it here, styled link. Just remove all this. Okay, so for the styled link, we're actually not gonna, it's not gonna be a div. Rather, we're going to extend the text. Because if you think about it, it's just the text. And we're going to style it as a link. So let me import our text from text.styled. Okay. And we're going to say, actually, let's see how this all looks first. So let me import our link container, import our styled link. Let's go to our application. Okay, so it's about now. So it's supposed to be about the blog at the last one, and then business. Okay, so this looks good. Okay, so we need some margin to the right of each of the links. So let's go ahead and add that. So say margin right. We can say 1.5 rem. See how that looks. Okay, looks good. What else? We need, when you hover, we need this text style to be to have an underline. So again, we use that ampersand technique we learned about. So the ampersand technique selects any instance of styled link, so 3 of them, and then we can attach hover property, same as CSS, and then we can just say text decoration underline. Nice. And then we also want, when you hover over it, rather than this text pointer, we want it to be the finger pointer, right? So what we can do is we can go to our styled link and we can use the as attribute. So we want this to be a link. So if we put as a, it's gonna make it inherit the properties of a link. So go to the next one, put as a, and go to the next one, put as a. Just refresh. Okay, and then we have to add the href attribute. And for now, href would just be slash. It's going nowhere. Good. So now we have that finger pointer. But now we notice that it's always underlined, but we only want it to be underlined when you hover over it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the text decoration of none. Good. So now we have the desired output. So let's look at it. Good. Nice. Okay, so in the next video, we're gonna deal with the buttons component. Okay, time to work on the, I'll call it hot buttons. So this is the links container, right? Inside there, we can add a new styled component, and we're gonna call it hot buttons container. And inside there, we can create 2 buttons. We're gonna call them hot button. So we just say hot button. And the first one is gonna be login. Then we can duplicate this hot button again. And this one is gonna be called sign up. Okay, let's go ahead and create the styled components. So our buttons container is gonna be like the links container, right? It's gonna be, so I can just copy the text, replace it here. Okay, so it's gonna be similar in the sense that we want to display flex, align at the center, and we want a gap of let's leave it at 0.5 for now. So we can go ahead and import our alt button container. Now let's create our alt button. And the alt button is going to be similar to the styled link in the sense that we're going to extend the text. So if I copy the styled link, and I just replace the text with alt button. Okay, so let's see how it is before we keep adding more styles. Okay, nice. So let's go to our application. Okay, so we have the login, we have the sign up. So first things first, we can notice that each of them have a background color. So this one is red, the Pinterest color, and this one is a bit gray. So let's go ahead and style them. Let's say the alt button container, sorry, the alt button, they have a background color of CCC. I don't know if that's the gray, but let's see. Okay, now we notice they have a padding, so let's give it a padding of 0.7 rem. Looks good. And they have a border radius, just give it 100 rem. Nice, that looks good. Okay, so now let me get the actual color of this. So it's EF. So let's replace that with this. Use the appropriate colors. Okay, so now this is both of them are both grays, but this one we want it to be red. So we can go ahead, we can create a new button and call it login alt button or something like that. But I want to introduce a new technique that Styled Components allows us to do, and it's called the CSS tag. So what I can say is it's the same way as using props. If I actually before that, one way of doing this would have been if I pass a color. So I can pass a color of, let's say, red, right? And that would be for the login rather. So we can first address this property, this issue with props. So I could have said here background color, right? And I would say props, then props dot color. So if I have props dot color, use it, else use this color. Let me see why this isn't working. Okay, it's gonna have to be in the text. Okay, and I'll have to do the same thing with color. So if I remove the background, so I'm gonna say if I have props.color, use white. So if I have props.color, use white. Else, so this is just JavaScript. I would say use I can say use black, right? So this works, it does work, but I would like to introduce another concept called the CSS property. So I'm just gonna go all the way back to refresh this. Why? Nice. Okay, so let's introduce the new property called the CSS property. And first of all, remove this. Okay, so with the CSS property, I can open the, well, since it's a template literal, I can use this to attach a value, and in here I can say I can get the props, right? And I can say if the props is, I can give this a prop of, let's say, type highlight, because I want it highlighted, right? So I can say if the prop, let's destructure. So it's going to prop the type. So let's destructure the type in here. So I can say if the type is equals to highlight, I can say double ampersand. So this is JavaScript again. Now is the CSS property, which we'll import from styled components. Open our template literal, and then I can write the style that I want to be applied. So in this case, it's going to be background color. It's going to be pound E60022. Okay, and then we're going to make the color white. Let's see how we did. Refresh this. Good. So now we want to add, for the Alt button, we want to add a hover property, which we can just actually go here and copy. And the cursor will be pointer. Nice. So now when we hover, we get the pointer. So this is very close to the original. Very, very close to the original. This looks good. And this doesn't actually have a red background. So that goes away. So now this looks very close to the original. So I just want to reiterate this CSS property. We can store styles in a CSS property like this, and we could even put this outside. Let's say we could have done something like cons highlight style equals to this, right? So we're going to remove this, equals to this, and we could have just put this in here, highlight style, and it's to give us the same result. So it's just a way of storing styles that you can use in different places of the application using the CSS property. So I'm going to go back to how we did it before. Just leave it that way. Okay, that's it. In the next part, we're going to be working on this button, and we're going to making this button change the theme. So we'll do a bit of CSS animation over here. So before we work on the animated button, let's go ahead and wrap up our header and just make sure it sticks to the top. So to do that, we have to go to the styled home, which would be in the home.style.jsx, and we're going to give it a position of relative. This is because we're going to position the header relative to this component. Okay, so let's go to the header component, and then we go to the style, header.styled, and in the styled header, let's give it a position of absolute. And then we want it to stick to the top, so we'll give it a top of 0. Let's see how it looks. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so that looks good, and we're going to go ahead and work on the animated button. Okay, so to do that, let's go to the home page, and we're going to be creating a new component. Actually, let's go to the source, then in the component folder, let's create a new folder called body. In there, let's create the normal ritual body.jsx, should be our components file. Let's create another file called body.styled.jsx. Okay, so create our component, just call it body. Okay, so in the style, take it to the right. So let's create a container called styled body. Export. In the style sheet, we're going to say export const styled body equals to styled.div. Okay, and we're going to say background color equals to red. Why not, right? Again, we're going to give it a width of 100% and height of 100%. Okay, go back to our body component and let's import it. See how that looks. Okay, it's not showing because we have to go to the home and we have to bring in the body. See how that looks? Nice. Okay, so we want to give our body a style, a position of, I would say the same position of relative. This is because we want to position the animated button relative to the component. Okay, so now we have our body component. We're going to be creating the button in the next video. Before we continue, let's actually fix the issue we're having with our header right now. As you see, it's kind of hidden behind the body container. So that's just a quick fix of increasing the Z index, or we can set it to 2, see if that works. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so now our animated button. So we want to kind of mimic this button. So rather than, let's go to our body components. So rather than creating a div and then putting an icon inside, we can just create a styled icon and just style the icon directly. So you're going to see what I mean. So styled, let's call it styled animated icon. Okay, let's go to our body.styled. So let's say export const. Let me copy this. Equals to styled dots. Actually, rather than dots, we're going to have to extend the icon. So let's go and find the icon we need. This, let me see which one looks interesting. So let's try this one. This icon. So we'll have to import it. So let's say import this icon from React icons /io. Okay, and now let's put our template literal and let's style it. Okay, so to style, let's give the background color of, yes, if you notice the background colors keep changing with this text. So what we can do, we can create a map of the different sections. So as you can see, we can say this section is like dinner section or something, and the other section is like decor and maybe outfit, etc. So let's go ahead and create that map. So to do that, let's go to our utils folder, new file, let's call it text.js, and in there what we're going to do is create, let's call it headings. So let's say export const headings, and it's going to be an array of objects. So the first object will have an index, let's call it index 0, and then we'll have a color. So let's call the first color, I already got the colors here, it's going to be string hashtag C28A02. For now, this is all we need. Let's go ahead and duplicate this 3 times because there are 4 sections. So the second one will be index of 1, third one will be index of 2, sorry I forgot to count, and the last one index of 3. Okay, so this will be 3F7A57, the third one will be 0076, sorry 6D2, and the second one would be 608C7B. Okay, so let's go back to the body the styled. So now we can say the background color, it will have to be passed in. So first let's set the size, which is 50. Okay, now let's call this, we'll have to pass in the prop bg color equals to, so it will be equals to what we can do is we can pass, so we can say headings, current index, which we can say it's let's say 0 for now, but this is going to change dynamically. Sorry, that word was gets me. Dynamically over time, because we're going to set up a timer that changes, and it's going to change from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3, and the colors will change accordingly. So as it changes, we're going to get the first color, the second color, and etc. Okay, so that looks good. Let's copy this. Let's actually bring in our styled animated icon. Okay, so background color is going to be, open our prop, we're going to get the prop, say props, it's going to be props dot bg color, and if that's not provided, we'll just use the color black. And the reason for that is because we want the icon to be white. So for the icon, we're going to give it a color white, and border radius, we want it to be round. So border radius, let's give it a border radius of 100. So let's see what we've got so far. Okay, so that looks good. Maybe we want to reduce the size a little bit. So let's go here and change the size to 40. See how that looks. Okay, now put it back to 50. See how that looks. Okay, sorry, my 50 is outside, so 50 inside. 50, okay. So the size is 50. Okay. Now let's go ahead and align this. So we're going to give it a position of absolute. We're going to tell it to go to the bottom. We'll just give it a 1 rem to the bottom. So what we got so far. Nice. Then let's say left. Left is going to go 50%. That's good. But if you look closely, you're going to see it's a bit to the right. And that's because it's 50% out of the left. So we have to nudge it, because of the center, we have to nudge it a bit back by 50%. So to do that, we're going to say transform translate x. We're going to say minus 50%. Okay, that's good. Okay, so another thing we can do, let me try something. Let's do a width of 4 rem, the height of 4 rem, and let's reduce the size of this. Let's see how that works out. Okay, 4 rem is a bit too big, but before that, let's take it to 30. Okay, it didn't work as I thought. Let's change the font to okay, let's remove this first, and let's put the size to 50. Okay, that looks good. Nice. Okay, so now to add the animation. So start component, adding animation is a bit different in the sense that we have to kind of create a variable. Let's call it bounce, since it's kind of a bouncing animation. And start component give us this API called keyframes. So we import it from start components. We open our template string, and let's animate when it's at 0%. At 0%, we want to transform it to set the translate to minus 50%, and then 0%. So Let's duplicate this. So the next one is going to be while it's at 50%, and that's going to be minus 50%, and we'll set it to minus 2 rem. And then the last one will be while it's at 100%, so minus 50% and 0 rem. Okay, now to attach the animation, all we have to do is animation. We inject the value bounce, and then we can say let's animate it for 2 seconds. We can use ease in out and make it an infinite animation. Okay, let's see what we got. So that looks good. Nice. So if we change this heading, let's say we change the index from 0 to 1, you see the color changes. So that looks good. What I want to add now is an ampersand, set the hover property, and just say when you hover, I want the cursor to go to pointer. And this is because we're gonna be clicking this button soon. Okay, so this looks really good. In the next video, we're going to be attaching this and making it control the theme of the application. Okay, let's go ahead and work on the theming. So to start, we have to go to the app.js, and this is where we have the function to update to the theme. So let's make a new function and call it const toggle theme. So this function will be responsible for toggling the theme between light and dark mode. It's going to be a simple arrow function, and all it does is it sets this theme, and it says so current theme. So we're going to say if current theme is equal to light, set it to dark, else set it to light. Make this a string. Good. Okay, so now we can pass this toggle theme function to, we want to pass it to home. So if we go to the home components, we're going to receive this as prop, and then we want to pass it to the body. So we're going to pass it again, and this is called prop trailing, which is really not good. And you could actually fix this using the React context API, but we're not going to do that here because we're learning styled components. It could also be maybe I'm just too lazy. Okay, so now we go into the body, and that's where our animated icon is. So we have to receive the toggle theme there, and there we can now set the on click, and we want to call toggle theme. So now let's see if it works, but before that, let's remove this red background. It's overstayed its welcome. So let's click this and cross our fingers that it works. Nice. So that looks good. The only thing we can notice is I would like the Pinterest text to be white, and I would like the sign up text to be black. Okay, so let's fix that. So let's go to the header, which I believe that's where they are. Okay, so let's see. So the color is going to be this, right? So it's going to be, this makes it always red. Team. Okay, so we're going to have to move some of these colors to the to our theme colors. So if we go to the utils, go to our theme.js, we're going to have to move some of these colors in here. So let's do that in the next video. Okay, so let's go ahead and fix this Pinterest text that's red on black theme, and then this sign up text that is white on the dark theme. Doesn't look really good, but I'm sure we can do something about that. Okay, so let's go to the theme.js, and in there we're gonna have to add a Pinterest. Let's call it Pinterest color, and it's gonna be, if I go to the header.js, it's gonna be this color. So on light theme, we want it to be that color, but then on the dark theme, we want it to just be white. So I'm going to say Pinterest color is going to be white. Okay. So next is going to be the sign up color. So let's say sign up text color to be more descriptive. So on the light screen, it's going to be, let's see, it's going to be black, which is okay. So 0, 0, 0. But then on the dark theme, we want it to be light. So we're going to replace this FFF. Okay. So now if we go to the text.style.jsx, we get a chance to practice using the CSS, I don't even know what to call it, but the CSS method of attaching styles. So we can do this to inject values, and we'll get a value called type. Let me just make sure the text don't take types. So let's see, type. Okay, so it doesn't take type. Nice. So we can say type, and if the type is equal to let's call it Pinterest color. Actually, let's change this to color type. Maybe that's a bit more descriptive. Color type. So if color type is equals to Pinterest color, then let's go ahead and attach this CSS. So again, we'll import it from style components. So let's update the color. So in CSS, if you reassign a style, it's gonna overwrite the previous one. So here we can just say color is going to be equal to, let's attach, because we want to get the props. So it's going to be coming from props dot theme dot, it's going to be Pinterest color. Okay, good. So let's go ahead and in the text, let's pass in the color type, and we'll pass in the color type as Pinterest color. So let's see if that worked. So let's click on the dark. Nice. So that looks better in my opinion anyways. Okay, so let's do the same thing for the sign up. Color type, if color type is equal to, let's say, sign up text color, let's go ahead and use sign up text color. It's good. Okay, so let's copy this color type and let's go to the sign up and let's pass this color type, and the color type will be sign up text color. Let me just make sure the out button, okay, it's an extension of text, so you should take the same props as text. So let's see if it worked. That didn't work. So let's go to the theme, and the text color on the dark theme is white, which we don't want. We want it to be black. So we want it to be 0, 0, 0. So the same as the dark theme. So just refresh this. Nice. Okay, so that worked. So one more thing, I really do not like this icon, so we have to find new ones. So I had an idea to use a bulb, in the sense of when it's a dark theme, we're going to put a shining bulb, and when it's a light theme, we're going to put a council bulb. So we can do this and this. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy that. So if we go to the animated button, so it's going to be in the home, the animated icon. Let's see, so let's go to the body.styled. Okay, so we can use the as attribute. So we can say if let's say true for now, but so this will be light to dark. So if true, we want to use this icon, else we want to use this, this icon. So let's go ahead and import those. So let's say import this from React icons slash is going to be hi. Okay, and we'll also import the other one. So since this is true, it's going to be highlight bulb. Okay, nice. So if I click on it, it's nice. So if I put this to false, we should start from the other one. So if I click on this, I'll put this back to true and see if it changed. Okay, it did change, but it's not really visible. Okay, in that case, let's use this one. And so let's use this one and this one. Okay, so now we're going to be bringing them from BS. Copy this, paste it here. Okay, so there's a council Bob 13, still big. Okay, this video is running a bit too long. We're going to continue the next video. So just in case I haven't bored you to sleep just yet, let's go ahead and wrap this up. So we're not actually going to take this route. Let's take away the as property. What we're going to do is let's add the style property, because the component does let us add styles. So we can just say the pattern to be 0.4 rem. See how that looks. Okay, it's good. We can reduce the size to 40. Okay, let me see. That's not bad. Increase the pattern to 0.6. Okay, let's increase the size to 50. Just kind of playing around with it. And that looks good, actually, if you ask me. So everything looks good. Everything looks good. Yeah, in the next video, we're going to start working on the contents page, or the content section, which will have this text. We'll have the ability to change the text and etc. So see you soon. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on the content. I would say I guess we can call it content text. So if we noticed, we have this the first text, and then we have the second text, and we kind of have these dots, and these dots, when you click them, they change the subtitle. So we can say this is the title, this is the subtitle, and this is going to be a dots container which have 4 dots that on click they change the subtitles. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on that. So in the body, we can just below this styled body, let's call this headings container. The styled component we're going to make very soon. So this this heading container is going to have our text. Okay, and this text is going to this text is a style text. This text is going to have the text called get your next. That kind of rhymed. Okay, so this text will be get your next, and then we can duplicate it, and the next text should actually be coming from kind of we'll call like a data map, because we're going to have this. If you notice, this text are mapped with different colors, and it's kind of, this is on the 0, 1. So if we go by index, this is 0 index, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. So if we create a map, an object map, and there's 0 on the first one, we can have this text with that color and etc. So I kind of have the map already, and I'm just going to paste it in. So if we go to our text.js, we can replace the headings with this. So just go ahead and pause the video and type this out. So what we're going to do is we're going to say the second text is going to be, let's store an index using a use state. So let's say const, we can call it current headings index. So let's say current headings index. and then the setter function will be called set current heading index. So it's going to be equals to useState, and the current index will be 0. So what this allows us to do is to come in here and say the second one is going to be, so if we bring in the headings, this should export. Okay, so this should be inside the curly braces. So if we bring in the headings and then the index, so that will give us the first one since the index is 0, and then we can say dot name. So this should work. Let's import our text. It should come in from utils. So it should come in from the utils folder. Good. Okay, so let's go ahead and create the headings container. So if we go to the body, we can quickly duplicate this one, change the name to headings container. Okay, so we can say the display is going to be equals to flex, and in this scenario we want to flex direction to column because we want them to be stacked on top of each other. We want, let me see what we have so far. Okay, let's go ahead and bring it in just so we can see the changes. So if I go here and import it, looks good. Okay, so see it's up here. So that means we want it to give it a position of absolute. That's good. We want the left to be 50% because one kind of position it in the center, and we want the top to be around 25%, and then to kind of nudge it back to its correct position, we can say translate x to minus 50%. Okay, let's go see what we have. So that's good. Okay, so it looks like we have to give it the size. So if we remember our text component, start components takes in a size property. Actually, let's go look at it. So for the props, we can send it so sizes, props.size. So if we go sizes, then props.size, so it takes in a size property. So for the size, we can pass in, if I remember the sizes, props.size. So just remember the sizes. Let's go to sizes.js. And for this one, we're going to use extra large. So size extra large. Go to the next one, pass size extra large. Let's see how that. Okay, so this is good. Okay, so let's go back to our body. Let's give it a gap. So I want to give some gap in between them. We can say 5.2 rem. We want it to be centered, so we can say justify content center. See what we have so far. Okay, it's good. Well, it's not good, it's a bit too far apart. So let's see, let's change the gap to rem for now. Okay, so this looks good. So now I want to change the color. So for the second one, we want the color to come from, it's going to be an object, so we want the color to come from the index. So it's going to be headings.current index, but this time around is going to be dot color. So if we go back to the text, you're going to see each of them have this color property. So we can just replace this with this, save. Okay, so the reason this works is because the text start component, it takes in the color prop. So if we pass in a color, it's going to use the color, and if we don't, it uses the default color. So let's go see, refresh this. For some reason it doesn't work. Okay, that's because we're doing dot name, so I have to change it to dot color. Okay, so this is good. So if we update this to 1, I'm going to see the text changes and the color changes. If you update this to 2, nice. And next we're going to be using the dots to update the color and the text. Okay, so it's centered. Let me go back to 0. For some reason it didn't look like it was centered. Okay, so it doesn't look like it's centered here. Let's go back to our body dot start, display flex direction column, justify content center, to be align items center. Let's try that and see. Okay, so good. So that's center, is it? The gap, let's kind of give a gap of 1. So it's a lot better. Okay, so this looks good. Looks like what we have here. Nice. Okay, so in the next video we're going to be making, actually let's reduce this to 0.8. So in the next video we're going to be making the dots container, and we're going to be adding the change functionality. Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and make the dots container. So the dots container will have to sit just below the 2 text. So we're going to create a new start component called dots container. Dots container. Okay, that's good. So we can just write dots container for now. Let's go ahead and create the start component. So we can start by just duplicate this. Place this dots container. It's going to be a style.div, is correct. Remove this. Let's put a background color for red, just so we can see it. So let's go back to the body component and import it. That's good. Let's go back and see. Okay, that's good. The only thing is kind of sitting too close to the text. Okay, so I'm just gonna go and add a margin top. Give it a margin top of 2.2 rem. Let's go back and see. Okay, looks a bit better. Okay, so this dot container contains obviously dots, right? So we have to create a styled dot. So we're gonna call this dot. Dot. Okay, and our dot is, go back to our styled component, style sheet, create a dot. That's good. That's gonna be a div, and this dot is it's just gonna be little circles. So we can create that by saying, giving it a height of 0.6 rem, give it a width of 0.6 rem. Obviously you have to give it a border radius of just a big border radius will do. Okay, and then when you hover over it, we're going to use obviously the ampersand that we've learned about. So ampersand, which says on this instance, anytime you hover over it, apply these styles, and this style will just be cursor. One can kind of give it a pointer, so cursor pointer. Okay, let's go see what we have. Dots not defined, so we have to import our dots. That's good. Dot is not defined, so we should refresh. Nice. Okay, so it looks like we have one dot with the color red. So let's remove this color, background color red. And it seems we have to give our dots a background color because we can't see it. And if we notice, when any dot that isn't active has this gray background color. So let's go and learn about the new attribute that styled components gives us, and this is called the attributes. I guess it's just called the attributes. So it goes like this: dot a t arrow. So the autocomplete gives it to us, and it takes a function, right? And basically what this does is we can kind of replace or add new attributes to the component. So in this case, we want to add a default background color. So we're gonna say here, we're gonna have access to the props. So we're gonna say we're gonna receive a props called BG color. And BG color is gonna be equals to, if we receive it, it's gonna be BG color. And if we don't, we're gonna have the all, and we're gonna have this default color. called E1, E1, E1. Okay, so here we can come in and say background color would be BG color. So we'll have to use our template. Okay, so BG color. Just gonna copy and paste this. It's gonna come from props, so we're gonna destructure it. Okay, so just to explain this again, in styled components, we can modify the attributes of a HTML element. So in this case, the element would be .div. So by doing this, we're adding extra attributes to it, and we can manipulate these attributes. So here we're saying we're kind of adding the attribute BG color. We're getting it as a prop, right? And we're saying if we get it as a prop, we use it, and if we don't, we set this as a default. So this is kind of a fallback. And here we're just have to close this. Okay, and here we're just saying background color should be equals to this BG color. Okay, so now let's go back and see. So now we get it. We get the gray color. So we need four of these dots. So we can say we can use the headings, since each dot will have an index, and it will have the color, right? So we can say, we can open the brackets here, and we can say headings dot map. So this will give us each heading, and for each of the heading we want to return these dots. So in this case we have 4 headings, which will give us 4 dots, so we can get rid of the dots below. So now we have 4 dots, right? So for each of the elements we can get in the index which we want, right? And we can get the, what else can we get? We can get the color which we also want, right? So in the dot we can then pass the BG color as color, and for each dot we can say on click would be, we want to set this index to the current index. So we can say set current headings index to index. Nice. Okay, so let's go and see if this works. So it works. The only thing is that the buttons are not stacked correctly. So to correct this, we'll have to go to our body.styled, and in the dot container we'll have to give it a display of flex. Then we'll have to say we'll give it a gap just so they're spaced well, so 0.8 rem. Okay, let's see, and this looks good. Okay, so the only thing now is the color. We don't want it to always be how do I put it, the current color. So we want if the current index is active, so in this case the green thumb idea would be the last one. So if it's index 3, so if this index is 3, then we want the color to show, else we don't want any color. So we can say if this current index, right, in this case current index, it's equals to this index, which is this index. So if that's the case, we want to pass color, else we don't want to pass anything, so we just say no. So this correct. So if we press this, everything is working. So this looks good, really good, kind of like the original. Nice. Okay, so in the next videos we're going to start working on the tiles, the picture tiles, and we're going to make them change every time the heading changed. Thank you. Given that this is the biggest part of the the project, I thought we'd just take some time to talk about it. So if you notice, we have 7 different columns, and each column have 2 pictures, so in total we have 14 pictures. We also notice that they all have different margins from the top. So the first and the last one have the same margins from the top, and the second and the second to last, and etc. What else do we notice? We notice that there are 4 sections. For the 4 sections, we have different pictures, and those 4 sections we've kind of given names. So the dinner section, the decor section, the outfit section, and the green section. So what I've done is, in the public folder, I've created different folders which have different pictures for each section, right? So what I want you to do is, I'm going to try to provide these pictures for you guys, but if I don't for some reason, I want you guys to maybe go to a site like Unsplash or any free stock photo website and just download some pictures relating to decor, dinner, green, and outfits, and just put them in different folders, just like I've done here. Okay, so let's start by creating a constant for the margins. So let's call it tiles margins, and basically it's going to be margins that I have here. I'm just gonna paste it in, and you guys can go ahead and pause this video and just copy along. So if you notice, the first and the last one has the same margins, the second and the second to last, and then etc. Yeah, that's it. So in the next video, we're gonna start working on the tiles container. Thank you. Okay, so let's work on the tiles container. Let's go to our components folder, and in there, let's create a new folder and call it tiles. And as usual, we're gonna go in the tiles folder we just created. We're gonna create our tiles.jsx, and then we're also gonna create our tiles.styled.jsx. Okay, so we're gonna take the style sheets to the right and leave the component on the left. I'm gonna create our component, and let's now bring it into the body. So in the body, just under the headings container, we can put in the tiles. I'm gonna import it in, just make sure it's showing up nice. So we have our tiles showing up. Okay, so if we go to the tiles, we can start working on it. So let's create, as usual, our tiles container. We're gonna go to our tiles.styled, and we're gonna say export const, and we're gonna copy this name from here, paste it here, and it's gonna be equals to styled. Import it from styled components. It's gonna be a div, style.div. Open it. So let's say this styled component is gonna have a height of 100%. I'm gonna give it a width of 100%. Let's give it a background color for now, just to see what we're working with. So let's say gray. We have to go back to the styled component and import our styled container in. Okay, so that's good. We do have exactly what we want here. Okay, so let's now we have to give it a display of grid. So remember, we have 7 columns. So we're going to say grid template columns is going to be 1fr, 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 and I'm getting bored of typing this, so I'm just going to copy paste. Then we need one more 1fr. So we have 7 of them. So this is going to give us 7 columns, and for each of them we want to give it a grid gap of let's say 1 rem. Let's see what we have. Okay, we're not going to see anything because we haven't put any contents in. Okay, so for the contents, we're going to have 7 columns. So let's create a new styled component. We're going to call it tile column, right? So let's just put the text in there for now. Then we're gonna create duplicate the styled component and just rename it. So we're going to remove the styles, and here let's just give it a height of let's say 10 rem. We'll give it a width of 100%. Since they're going to be inside the column, you can give it a width of 100%. And let's give it a background color of, let's say, blue, just to see what we're working with. So let's go to the tile component and let's import it. Import the tile column, see what we have. Okay, so that's good. Maybe I want this to be 30, just a bit bigger. And let's duplicate this column 7 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Good. So we have 7 columns. Nice. That looks good. Okay, so we're going to continue in the next video. So rather than having to duplicate this column 7 times, we're going to use the, if we go back to our text.js, we're going to use the tiles margin that we created. So if you notice, we have 7 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So what we can do is inside the tiles container, we can say tiles margins dot map, right? Then for each of them, we're going to return the tile column. So this way we're going to have 7 of them. So now we don't have to duplicate this, we can just get rid of them. Okay, so for Go, we have the same thing, which is good, but now we get access to the margin, right? And we also have access to the index. So what we can do is, in the tile column, we can go to our tiles.styled, right? In the tile column, we can receive the margin, because for each of them, we want to apply the margin for that specific column, right? So we can say transform, and we'll say translate Y. So this time I want to translate in the Y direction, and we're gonna open the template literal, and we're gonna say, so let's receive the margin as prop, right? And then we're gonna say if you give us a margin, use the margin, else we're just gonna say give it a 0 margin. Okay, so this looks good. So now for each of them, let's go here and let's pass in that margin. So you can say margin is gonna be equal to margin. So let's see how this worked out. Nice. So as you can see, we have the margins being applied. So now what we can do is we can give the entire container a margin from the top. So you can see we can give it like this initial margin here. So if we go back and go to the tiles container, we can say margin top would be equal to, let's give it a 107 rem. Okay, so this kind of knocks it out of the flow. So align content. Okay, before we give it a margin top of 7 rem, let's try something else. So since this has a display flexive grid, let's give it a align content end. That's what that does. Okay, but this too knocks it out of the flow. Okay, so if we notice, we're having an overflow issue. So what we can do is we can go to the body.styled, and in there we're going to go to the body container. So let's see if I can find the body container. So this is the body. We have this styled body. Okay, so let's give it an overflow of hidden. This way, this hides the overflow, but then we have this being a bit too down. So let's go back to the, it will be in the tiles container. So go here, and let's see, let's remove the align content end. Let's see if we can work with the margin. So give the margin top of 7. Okay, so we need more of that. Let's get rid of this gray background. Okay, so now we need to increase the margin. So let's give it a margin top of say 17. Okay, bit more, so let's give it 20. Let's do down, let's give it 18, 12. Okay, so 19 seems to be the perfect. Okay, so 19 looks good. Okay, so this looks good. So in the next video, we're going to work on adding the tiles, the individual tiles, which is going to be the pictures. See you guys soon. Okay, so let's start on working on the tile, which will be the pictures. So we know each column have two pictures aligned in a column format, so stacked one on top of the other. So we're gonna go to the tiles.jsx, and inside our tile column, we're gonna create our next tile component called tile. I know, who could have guessed, right? So it's gonna be a self-closing one. So just remove this, start closing. So let's go ahead and create the tile here. But this time around, the tile is going to be an image. So you can say img. This image it's going to have, we don't need a background color, but I guess, well, no, we don't. So let's just give it a height of 23 rem. Give it a width of 100%. I'm going to give it a border radius of it's going to be 1 rem. We're just going to say object fits to cover. Okay, so now let's go back to our tile component and let's give it a source attribute. Since it's an image, we need a source. So these things are going to get a bit complicated. So for the source, we're going to have to generate our link to the image, right? So remember, our images is in the public folder, and each of them have this directory. So for the image, we're gonna have to import it from, well, we're gonna need a few things, right? We're gonna need to know the current index because we want to know which section we're on. So I'm gonna have to, in the prop, we're gonna have to get the current heading index, okay. And this will be passed in the body component since we have it here. So if I go to the tiles, I'm gonna say current heading index is gonna be equals to current headings index. Okay. So we're gonna come here. So now to generate the source, we're gonna use a template string, right? So the source is going to be in the public folder, but it's going to have to be one of these sections. So the sections, if you remember, it comes from, so it's going to be slash, which will mean the current public directory. And to get if it's decor, dinner, green, or outfits, we're going to say headings. So we're going to have to open our template literal. We're going to say headings, bring it in. So headings would take the current index. So if I go to the text, so we say headings, you need a current index, right? So in this case, it's going to be the current heading index, right? So now we're going to have one of these headings. So it's going to be decor, dinner, green, or outfit. So now if I open it, you're going to see the name corresponds with the name of the folder, and then they all have numbers, so 0 to 13. So we're going to have to construct that to get the specific image. So to get the heading that the current index give us this object, so we need the name. So we're going to say dot section, which give us a folder. So we say dot section, and now we're going to say slash. So now we want to generate the image. We want an image from this section. So that's going to be again headings. Just copy paste this. Okay, it's going to be again current heading index. So it's going to be heading, current heading index. So it's going to be slash decor, right? Then now we need so this section, I think I'll need to open a templates literal again, sorry. So this will have to be a template literal because we're injecting values. So it's going to be dot section, right? So now it's going to be, this section will be decor, so this will be slash, then this will give us the decor section, then we're going to say dash, so this will be this dash. So to get the index, we're going to have to open another template literal, and the index is going to be this index, because remember we have a margin of 0 to 7, which is going to be index. And since for each of them we need 2, right, we need 2 per column, we need 2 images, we're going to say index multiplied by 2. So in this case, if you think about it, this will be image 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, etc, etc. So we're going to say index multiplied by 2, and then we're going to say .jpeg. So we can duplicate this twice, and the second one will be image multiplied by 2 plus 1. Okay. So again, let's just go through this, how we got to the source, because I know this can be a bit confusing. So in the source, we're going to start, this starts from the public folder. So headings.current heading index. So I'm just going to correct this. So I'm going to correct this to change the E to capital to small letters. Change it here too, okay. Okay, so headings.current heading index will give us the section. Dot section will give us the current section we are. So in this case, if it's dinner, so that means we're going to go in the dinner slash will be, now we're inside the dinner folder, right? Headings.current index.section, again will give us dinner because each image starts with the section name. Then dash will give us this dash, and then we generate the index. So in this case, the index is 0. 0 multiplied by 2 will be 0. And then the next one will be 1. So 0 multiplied by 2 will be 0, then plus 1 will give us 1. So in that case, it starts from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So that's why we have 13 images. So I know this is a bit confusing, but if you just go over it a couple of times, you're going to get it. So let's say our images, and as you can see, we have the images showing up. So this is good. So let's go ahead and remove that blue background. Okay, so this looks good. This looks clean. See, as we change the index, this changes, everything looks good. You can change the theme, and yeah, this looks good in my opinion anyways, if I do say so myself. Okay, so this is kind of where the course ends, but for an extra, we're going to talk about animation. So we're going to talk about how we can animate the subtitle and then these images. So stay tuned. Okay, so let's start, well, I guess before we start on animating this text, let's first let's first change this text periodically. So if you notice, this text after a couple of seconds changes. So we can say the index updates to the next one after a couple of seconds. So in our body components, we can use a use effect to do this. So we're going to need to create a use effect, which takes a function, and in there we're gonna have to pass it's gonna depend on the current heading index. So we're gonna pass that to our dependency array, sorry. Okay, so in here what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a set interval, and this set interval is gonna be for, let's say, 4,000 milliseconds. We're gonna write our function, and in the function we're going to say So it's going to take a callback function, and here we want to update the current heading index, right? So since we want to update it based on the current index, we're going to have to use the current index, so which would be, we can just say index, and here we're going to have to do some calculations. So if the index, so well, in this case the current index, let's be more specific. So if the current index plus 1, which will give us the next index, right, is greater than, well, is less than 4, right? So if you notice, if we go to the text.js, you see we only have four of them, and they go from 0, since the index starts from 0, go from 0, 1, 2, 3. So we cannot be 4 or greater, so it has to be less than 4. So if it's less than 4, then we can update it, the current index, to current index plus 1. Else we'll have to reset it to 0. Okay, so sorry, this will have to be comma. Okay, let's see, expected answer instance on expression. So this, so it will have to be a comma. I'll have to get rid of this, 4000, set interval, okay, get rid of this. Okay, good. So set interval is a function that takes this callback function and then the time. So before we continue, let's go and see what we have actually. So every 4 seconds, let's say it changes. Okay, it's kind of glitchy. Okay, so let's return in the use effect, let's return from it. I will want to return a function that kind of clears the interval. So it's going to be this, and we can store the set interval into an ID called const ID. And we can just say return clear interval ID. Okay. Now let's see what we have. So just refresh this. Wait for 4 seconds. Okay, it changes. Wait for another 4 seconds. Nice. Okay, so that works. So we can change it, and then with another 4 seconds. Nice. Okay, so this looks good. So on the next video, we're going to start working on animating the text as it changes. Thank you. So since this is not a course on animations, React animations, we're not going to go too in depth into animations. Rather, we're just going to kind of scratch the surface. But in the future, I'm going to be making a course on animations. So if you're interested in that, I would advise you to follow me. Subscribe to the channel, or wherever you're watching this, find a way to follow me. Okay, so let's get to it. So to animate this, we're going to have to work on animating the present. So animate whether or not this text is showing or not. So in that case, if we go to the body, we're going to be working on the subtitle. So this one, the second text. So we're going to have to kind of show all of them at once, and I'm going to show you what that means. So to show all of them, we're going to have to say headings.map, and we're going to, for each of them, we're going to show this text, right? But in this case, the text will depend on, well, the current item it's on. So in that case, we're going to get, we can say the heading data, and we're also going to get the index, right? So in the name is now going to be, the name will be equals to heading.name. So rather than this, is going to just be heading.name. So because the heading will refer to the current data it's on, right? Okay, let's see what we have now. So that shows all of them, so that's good. So the color too has to change. So the colors now is going to depend on the heading.color. remember, since we're looping through the headings, at each point we're going to have the current heading, which would be this one or this one or this one or this one. Then we can get the color and the name. So let's go. Nice. So now we have 4 of them. We kind of want them to overlap each other. So to do that, let's create a new component, which is going to be called the animated. We're going to call it animated heading. I'm going to show you in a second why we have to do this. So change this. Okay. And this animated heading, we're going to put our text inside it. Now let's go ahead and create this animated heading. So it's going to be in our styled, in our body.styled, and we can actually just find this and duplicate this, replace the name with animated heading. But in this case, it's not going to be a div or even a paragraph. It's going to be a motion dot div, and now we need to import Framer Motion. So we don't have it, so we're going to have to install it. So I'm going to go npm I, so npm I, and we're going to just make sure the name. So npm I Framer Motion. So npm I Framer Motion. I'm going to install that. Okay, good. So now we can go and import motion from Framer Motion. Nice. So if you go up here, you can see motion from Framer Motion. So this is not just a normal div. This is an animate. This is a div that we can animate. So let's remove these default styles we have here, and we're just going to give it a position of absolute. Okay. So we're going to go in here and import it. Let's see what we have. Refresh the page. Nice. So they're all kind of collapsed on each other. Okay, let's give it a top of, let's say 44%. Good. Okay. Just kind of compare. Okay, so we kind of want the dot container to be a bit further down. So let's say the margin top for the dot container, let's give the margin top of 2.2 rem. See how that works out. Refresh this. Margin top 2.2 rem. That doesn't seem to work for some reason. Let me just increase it to, let's say 20 rem, just a test. Okay, so that's good. So we'll have to, let's say 5.2 rems. Okay, it's a bit better. That's a bit further down, so let's say 10.2 rems. Want it a bit further up now. Let's say 6.2 rems. Okay, further down, 7.2 rems. Okay, this looks good. Okay, so now let's work on animating the headings. So what we can do is, in the animated heading, since it's a motion.div, right, it's a div that we can animate, it does take a couple of properties. So we can say the initial, we can work on the initial, and we can say the initial property is going to be, it takes an object where the y-axis is going to be, let's say 50%. Right. Then we can say the opacity. We can say it starts from 0. We can say the scale so from 0.5. So this way it starts from like a smaller scale. So this is where it starts from. So it's going to animate. So it has an animate property, and let's say animates from. Let's animate these 3 properties again. So the initial is where it starts from, and animate is kind of where it like goes to. So we're going to animate to y, where y is 0. I'm going to animate to where opacity is 1 and the scale is 1. Okay, so let's add another property, and this is the exit. So this for the exit animation. So again, we're gonna say y is gonna exit to, in this case, minus 50%. The opacity is gonna go back to 0 because we kind of want to replicate that disappearing effect. So transition is gonna, this kind of the transition, the animation transition. So it's gonna take an object. It has a duration of let's say it takes 1, and the ease would be here we just use ease in out. Okay, so that's the exit. It also takes another transition, this kind of a transition for the animation, and it takes an object. So an object that takes an object, and it's going to be the same. So in this case we can keep it the same. It's going to be equals to rather than semicolon. Okay, finally let's give it a key, which will be equals to just the index. Nice. So let's see, let's refresh this. Nice. So if you notice, they all animate together, right? In this case, you're not going to see it animating here because they're all like collapsed. So to make this work, we're going to have to wrap this inside an animate presence, which the frame of motion calls it. Right? So let's bring that in. Animate presence. So this is when you want to kind of animate a lot of, like a bunch of components at once. So you have to wrap them in this animate presence component. And let's refresh. Okay, so that's good. Nice. Okay, so what we want to animate is whether or not the text is showing or not. So in that case, we're gonna have to wrap this animate heading in a check that checks if the current index, it checks for the current index that's supposed to be visible. So in this case, it's going to be if the heading.index, we want to know which index to show. So if heading.index is equal, so headings.map, sorry, animate heading, so heading index, okay, so we can remove this, 1 second, and we can just say the one to show is equals to heading dot index equals to current heading index. So this will determine which heading should be visible, and it's going to be double ampersand. Okay, now let's see, refresh. Nice. So for the first one, we have weeknight dinner, home decor idea, and wait another 4 seconds. Nice. So we have that beautiful animation going on. So let me just see, it looks like the space is a bit too big. Okay, so go to the dot container, we can just make it 7. That looks good. Okay, for the, I guess it can be the, if I go animated heading, we can say top, give it a top of 42%, it'll go a bit higher. Yeah, I think that looks good. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to work on animating the tiles container. Thank you. So before we work on animating these images, I just want us to notice something. They all animate in and out at different times. So we're going to have to manipulate the transition times for these elements. Okay. We're going to be introducing a new library called UUID, and I'm going to use this to generate keys for our animations. So let's go ahead and copy this npm I and install it. Npm I React ID. That's good. So basically we're going to follow the same pattern we did for the animation of the subtext. So in the tiles container, we're going to want to basically render this 4 times, right? So to do that, we're going to, let's wrap everything in a div. So we can move this to a div. Then we can say inside the div, we're going to have to do headings.map. So these are the 4 types we're talking about. So we're going to get the heading. And we're also going to get the heading index. Okay, it's good. And we're going to want to return the animated presence, because now we want to wrap everything in the animated presence. Bring that in. So wrap everything in there. So in there, we're going to put the, copy this, and put the title column in there, and then the title column to show would be based on if the heading index is equals to the current heading index. So we can wrap this in here. So just wrap this here. And we're gonna say show this if current heading index is equals to the heading index. So that will determine which tile column to show. So it's good. Let's go see what we got. Okay, so that's good. Okay, nice. So it's not animating yet. So in the animated, let's go ahead and create, just like last time, let's create an animated column which is going to wrap our tile column. So let's create an animated column. It's going to be a style component. Animated column. Okay. We're going to put our tile column inside. Okay, let's go ahead and create this. It's going to be inside the tile.style. But now rather than div, it's going to be motion.div. Okay, animated column, bringing out motion. Nice. Okay, so animated column is just gonna have basically we're just gonna set the position to be relative. So position relative, and then for the tile column, we're just gonna update the position. We're gonna add position absolute. Let's bring in our animated column. Nice. Okay, so now let's set the properties for the animation. So initial is going to be equals to, as usual, an object, and we say y is going to be 100. Opacity is going to be 0. Okay, so now we can say animate, should the other property, same an object, and we're going to say y should go to 40. We can set the opacity to 1. And now is the interesting part. For the transition, for the animation, we want each tile column to transition at a different rate. So we're actually going to make a function. We're going to write a transition function. Let's call it transition. And basically it's going to take a number, which is going to be the index. So with that index, it's going to return an object which will contain duration 1 plus, so this is the duration it takes. So we're going to say index divided by 10. And we're just going to set the ease property to, we can just say ease in out. Nice. Okay. So what this does, it takes the index. So let's say 0 is going to be 0 divided by 10, which will be 1. And then the next one, if it's 1, will be 1.1. And then it just keeps going like that. So we're going to say here transition. And we're going to pass the index. It's good. Okay. Next property we're going to do is exit. So the exit property is going to go y is going to be negative 50%. X is going to be 0. We don't really have to set this x property, but just to make sure it stays in one place, we just set it. X is 0, opacity is 0. Transition, it's, again, we're going to use the transition index property. Okay. We can also set transition here again. So transition is going to be equals to the transition index again. Then key is going to be equals to UUID, which you can bring in. Okay, nice. So this should work. Let's go and see what we have so far. Nice. So we see that smooth animation. Nice. Okay, so I think this kind of wraps up the Pinterest page. If you ask me, it does look very, very similar to the original. We have the ability to change the task, which adds the animation, and we have the ability to change the theme. So thank you guys for sticking with me through this tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed it and learned a thing or two. Please make sure to follow me, like and subscribe, and I'll be sure to put out more new content. Thank you. Okay, so before we wrap everything up, I just noticed a little bug. So if we click on the change theme button, if you notice, we have the tile kind of rendering. So to properly see this, let's open our console. And if you go down to the rendering tab, just click on paint flashing. So what this does is it shows us the component that is rendering by showing the paint flashes. So if we wait to see the parts that are re-rendering are flashed green, and when we click the change theme icon, you see that the tiles are green. So that means that it's re-rendering even when the changing of theme has nothing to do with the tiles. So that shouldn't be the case. Okay, so let's go ahead and clean that up. So to do that, we'll have to memoize, whatever they call that. Okay, so we'll have to memorize the toggle theme function, and memoization is kind of storing this in a cache. So that way, since it's not changing, we can just store the value, and if the value doesn't change, it doesn't get passed to the home component and it doesn't re-render, because one way that the component re-renders is if the prop changes. So let's go ahead, and since this is a function, we're going to use the use callback hook. Then we're going to just pass an empty array as the dependency array. So let's go back and make sure that worked. So if I refresh, so when I click, issue is still there. Okay, so let's go to the home, sorry, to the body. So if I go to the body, the app, okay, so the body is in the app component. That's what receives the toggle function, the use callback hook. We've wrapped it in it. Let's go to the body component and let's memorize this body component. So let's wrap it in. Just gonna take this out. and let's wrap the whole body in a memo. So we just put it in curly braces and let's put it in a memo. So this is going to memorize the body component, and we're going to export the memorized components. So let's go back, refresh this, so change it. Nice. Okay, so now that works. Okay, so just to kind of go over what I just said, anytime we have a changing function, because since this is a function, it changes on every time the app component re-renders. That is when we change the theme. So we're going to have to re-render the children component. So we're going to have a new toggle theme function, which is going to cause the home component to change, even though the value really didn't change. So to fix that, we'll wrap it in a use callback. And then we also memoized our body components by wrapping it in a memo hook. Okay, so that's it. In the next video, we're going to talk about hosting it and making this our application live. Thank you. Okay, so let's get to the fun part, which is making our application live. So I need you guys to do two things. First, well, you probably already have a GitHub account, but if you don't, you should go to github.com, create an account, go through whatever verification steps you have to, and log in. So the same thing for Netlify, which is the app hosting we're going to use to host our application. So go to the netlify.com website, sign up, verify your email, and yeah. Okay, so now you've done that, let's go to GitHub and we'll create a repository. So we're just going to call this Pinterest. Sorry, not Pinterest. Okay, let's call it Pinterest Home. That's good. And description is going to be whatever you want. So I'll just say a React clone of the Pinterest homepage. You can be a bit more descriptive if you want. It's going to be public. Okay, just leave the defaults and just click create a repo. So now that's done, we're going to go back to our VS Code. We're going to go to, well, the source, what's it called? Source control. And what we can do is we can stage all our changes. So now we have all our files in the staged changes. If we click on git status, we can see all of them. So now we can say git commit -m. We'll just say host, hosting app. Click enter. Here I'm going to click down. You can do this on the terminal too if you're familiar with it. I'll click the add. Click on add existing repo, and I'm just going to select the path to the application. So in this case, I've already selected it, which is Pinterest clone. I'm going to click on open. I'm going to click on add repo. Okay, looks good. If I click on publish branch, okay, so if I go back to GitHub and refresh, nice. So we can see we have our files uploaded to GitHub. Okay, so now we have that. We're going to go to Netlify. We're going to click on import existing projects from under the site section. We're just going to click import from Git. So now we've done that, we're going to click deploy with GitHub. We're going to have to authorize Netlify. So it's authorized. We're going to click on install. Okay, so now we have a list of our projects, our repository on GitHub. So I'm just going to select the one I want to deploy, which is Pinterest Home. And the only thing we're going to change is the build command. So I'm going to change it to CI, which means continuous integration. So this way, anytime we make a commit to a push to our GitHub repository, it redeploys our application. So this way we make sure our application is always live. So we're going to leave the build directly, publish directly the same. And we're just going to click on deploy Pinterest Home or whatever you named yours. I'm going to give this a couple of seconds. or minutes, however it takes. So when it's done, we're gonna have a URL that we can go ahead and click to view our application. Nice. Okay. So it looks like the application is successfully deployed, so we can click view site deploy. Okay, everything looks good. Click on, we can go back and click on this link. Nice. So we have a URL that we can share to people to view our application. Everything looks like it works fine, so that's really good. So I just wanted to talk a bit about the continuous integration part of our application. So if we go to Netlify and you click on your link, we can see the application. So let's say we wanted to update the application. In this sense, in this case, I want to update the page header and the icon. So I'm going to go back to my local copy and I'm going to go back to my code. But before that, let's get the icon. So go to icon8.com and just search for Pinterest. You're going to look for an icon you like. In this case, I think I got this one. Just click on the icon, click on download, and click on favicon. I left mine at the recommended 16x16 and just click on download. So when you download this favicon icon, go to the folder you have your project in and paste it in your public folder. So I've done that and I named mine pinterest-icon.png. Okay, so after you've done that, let's go to the index.html, which is in the public directory. So now we want to go to this link that says real icon, so the relationship icon. We want to remove the favicon.ico, which is the current icon, and we want to replace it with whatever you named your icon. So in my case, mine is pinterest-icon.png. So if we go back to the application, you're gonna see my icon now is showing. It's a bit blurry, but I guess you can choose maybe a higher definition icon or a bigger icon. In this case, I really do not mind. So let's go back to the index.html and let's change the title. So let's change it from React app to Pinterest. Go back to our application, and now it looks exactly like Pinterest. So to redeploy this, all we have to do is, if we go to the source control, it shows us our current changes. On the changes tab, we can just click on add to add all the changes we've made, and then we can click on, if we go to the GitHub desktop, which I'm using, I can actually just comment this. So if I say added icon, which would be my description, and I click comment to main, and I just click on push. So anytime I push, it says failed, bad objects, main, do not send unnecessary objects. Okay, let's close this. Let's see if it worked first before we try to. Okay, let's refresh this. Okay, so we see it's building. So anytime you push to the main branch that you use to deploy your app, Netlify is going to automatically make a new build and republish the application with the latest changes. So we're just going to wait a couple of seconds or minutes. Okay, it looks like it's already published. So let us click on the link again, and now we see our changes are deployed. So this is how you can easily make changes to your application and get it up and sharing live. Thank you guys so much. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you're interested in seeing more tutorial like this, I'll really appreciate if you like and subscribe, or leave a comment below of what you want to see or any advice you have for my future videos. Thank you so much.